I knew Bob's little brother Roger before I knew Bob. I used to go visit him, Astoria. It wasn't Astoria, but it was the Astoria area. I didn't get to know Bob till I was a freshman in high school. His class was my favorite. Home maintenance. Anybody remember home maintenance? Huh? You got a clap there, huh? Okay. We learned a lot of stuff. We learned to fix stuff. That was very cool. And honey, that was back. I don't remember any of that stuff. Okay? I could fix it then, but I can't fix it now. Bob was my favorite. He was awesome. He coached our basketball team that year too. We did really well. He was a good coach. We had a lot of fun too. In August of my junior year, our basketball coach left. Our varsity basketball coach. And we didn't have a coach. So I don't know what got into me, but I went into Arnie Lewis's office. He was a superintendent at the time. I told him straight up, I said, Bob Bement should be our coach. I was right too. Because Vale's basketball team in my freshman and sophomore year won a total of 3 games, and when Bob got done with us by the time I was a senior, he increased our winning percentage 77%. I thank you for that, Bob. We were no longer the laughing stock. That was awesome. By the time I got back to Vale to teach, Bob had retired to his airplane, and I got to know him on an entirely different level. He graciously invited many members of my family, and probably many of yours as well, up in the air, and we appreciate that too, Bob. As you can see by the biographies, Merle's was a little short, Dave's was short, and Bob's was long. And that was eloquently written by Carol Spurgeonic, Bob's good friend. Very well done. Now, I asked Bob earlier today, I said, Bob, you going to have any grandkids here? And he said, I don't know, but they sure showed up. Aaron and Brandon, they're here. Well, you know what? Bob's our grandpa. He's this town's grandpa. He's been bebopping around here for years. He's been on a bike with Ronnie, just the two of them. We've seen him for years. He's down at the coffee shop. He's bebopping around this town. He'll go down and have a beer with somebody down at the local tavern. We really appreciate your energy, Bob, and we really appreciate you staying so young for us. You're a fantastic gentleman. Now, I don't know Bob Junior very well, but I know his daddy's really proud of him. And we're looking forward to hearing from him as well.
Thanks, Jeff. It's an honor to be here tonight. The first annual Vale High School Hall of Fame. It kind of has a nice ring to it, the Hall of Fame induction. And to be here with these 3 gentlemen, the first one, you know, Merle, one of the things Vale takes great pride in is the trophy case. The trophy case is pretty cool. You know, you got some of the little trophies that Wilcox put in there that he's all proud of and all that stuff. But now you walk by and it's like, oh yeah, that's Merle's team. Oh, that one's Merle's team. Oh, that one's Merle's team. I had a couple in there with Schroeder and the McGowans, and you know they've been moved over to the side. So what Merle brought, the pride that he brought to Vale and the Vikings is incredible. I grew up watching Wilcox, hands on his hips, legs crossed on TV on Sunday. You know, it's like, which one? Oh, I see. You always knew which one Dave was, because nobody stood like him or hit like him. But I get to introduce my hero. Growing up, my dad was my hero, still my hero. And I really am appreciative that you're inducting my dad into the Hall of Fame, because I believe there's no truer Vale Viking than Bob Bement. It started with him and Roger, his brother, and Dick coming out with the family from Sherman, New York, and just visiting. And then they went back, and the boys just badgered my grandparents until they finally moved back. We want to come back and live in the Oasis. And so they moved back to Vale, and My dad loved being a Viking. I've heard more stories, and I've heard the same stories, more stories and the same stories, and then I heard a few of the same stories, and so he took great pride in that. Graduated in 1952, married my mom. They were together for 60 years until we lost my mom in 2012. Went off to college, but he came back and lived in Vale just as soon as he could, and he did great things. You know, in 1982, he was the Oregon Teacher of the Year in driver's education. And if you played sports in the time that Dad was here, you just always saw him. He always ran the offense against the first team defense, and you know, Dad's kind of a horse's sometimes, and and so he would kind of make fun that he would get through the defense, and the defense wasn't all that tough, and talk about sissies and other terms that he would use. And so every once in a while somebody would just knock him on his ass when he came through. He had no pads on, and then he would start whining about, well, yeah, you hit me, I got no pads on. It's like, shut up, I'm going to do that going forward. But and basketball, always playing pickup games after school, and I loved playing pickup games with my dad. And you had to pay attention, because if you didn't pay attention, he would bounce the ball off the side of your head when you were looking the other way. And it was always fun to play pickup games with Dad. And then track. You know, track. Dad always thought it was good to compete against the tracksters and run the quarter mile and show, okay, who's a better quarter miler, me or you young kids? And sometimes he did really well. And then sometimes he ran into what do we call that? The wall. Yeah, sometimes that last 100 yards, he ran into the wall. And Dad always talked about the wall. You know, you're going to run into that wall, Wayne. You know, Wolf never ran into the wall because he ran 2 miles. And where do you put the wall on a 2-miler? So it was fun. I got to run against him. And he finished somewhere after I did. Not saying anything, but just that he finished after me. So luckily, he was old by the time I got there. My dad, when I talk about my dad to people, I say, well, you've seen the show that was after my dad, MacGyver? You know, because my dad, you give him some popsicle sticks, he'll be able to do a 3-bedroom brick home. And he's just incredible. He took parts out of Herman Lawrence's pasture and a car and built that, and what we affectionately called a brown bomb. It was my, well, it was a pretty hot car to be driving as a 16-year-old. A chick magnet is what I used to call it. But he did other things. He was an EMT. He was a chef for the BLM and cooked for his crew and came up with, he just loved coming up with dishes, and there's a couple of them that we still eat. The ribs, which are pretty damn good. The meatloaf's even better. And so Dad still cooks them for us. And then one of the favorite things he did was, my mom sewed all the time, and being the horses that he has, every once in a while, he said, I could do that. Oh yeah? So Mom went out and got him a pattern for a pantsuit. Dad. Yeah. So my mom was a little bit of a horse herself. So if you're going to sew something, she put something in it that had the zipper, the full length of the back of it, and Dad sewed it, Mom wore it. And so there was nothing that my dad couldn't do, including poetry. Dad's going to talk about a poem here a little bit, but that's not my favorite poem. Viking Pride is a great poem, but it's not my favorite. When I was born, he wrote the poem, My Son. Not emotional for me. And it had the aspirations that Dad wanted me to accomplish, and I hopefully accomplished some of those. I've lived a blessed life and have been around great people, but part of it was the things that my dad instituted in me early. And My dad trusted me, and it's a quality that I use as I lead organizations and lead the organization that, by the way, runs the largest nuclear plant in the United States of America, generates more electricity than anybody else, and it's all carbon-free. I'm proud of that. Dad trusted me. When I was 5 years old, we lived in Dayville, and Dad said, hey, we're going to go hunting, and Mom said, do not let him out of your sight. So Dad didn't. We got out there, and there was Dad and I and one of his friends, and he said, okay, Bobby, now, so-and-so's going to go here, I'm going to go here, and you go down the middle of the draw. I said, all right, I'm going, you know, and of course he wanted me to go down there and make noise, so I would kick deer up. And so pretty soon I heard shots, and then I heard my dad's whistle. I could always recognize my dad's whistle, and so I went up there, and we field dressed the buck. The three of us were fully engaged. I had absolutely no value, but I was totally engaged in it. And then so we went and we moved the car, and Dad said, okay. He gathered a bunch of firewood. He said, I'm going to leave you here. Keep this fire burning so we can see how to get back to the car, because it was dark by then. Man, I said, I got it. I'm your man. And he relayed the importance to me, and so he left all that wood there, and he walked out of there, and it was probably 15 minutes before I had every stick of wood on that fire. I had a bonfire. He could see it for miles. Of course, it was done burning by the time that it came back, and so as they were hauling a deer, Dad would see a flame and then nothing, and then flame and then nothing, and a flame and nothing. And as it got closer, he would see that I was pulling grass and throwing it on those coals, and I would flame up, and I would go pull more grass and throw it on the flame. When Dad got there, he did make a little fun of me, but he also thanked me for what I did. And the last thing I want to talk about is my dad being selfless. You know, Dad has always done things for other people. It started before I remember. Started with an event on the Snake River when Dad was there, and somebody's boat tipped, and Dad dove in the water, jumped in the water, and went down and pulled one individual up and saved the individual's life. And it's just the way Dad was. I remember being at Brogan playing ball, and I got to play a lot of ball with my dad growing up. And all of a sudden, Dad starts running. I had no idea what was going on, but there was a vehicle that had started backing away from Vilsmeyer's store and out across the Brogan Highway. And you know how busy that road is. I mean, any hour a car could be coming along. And he jumped in there and slammed the brakes on, and it's just the way he was. But the one that the example that I cherish the most of Dad is his writing about the World War II vets, doing the research, writing the papers, and lifting those people up of the things that they did for us during World War II, that we could have what we have. And Merle, I love your discussion on World War II and how it affected us. And just Dad writing those and talking about the people and making them famous with his ability to write about them. And that's what I remember the most about my dad growing up. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my hero, Bob Bement.
I just want you to remember, I got through it without giving